Hello and welcome to what we hope will be a rebooted version of the Simwood podcast. Don't worry, you haven't mistakenly tuned into a rerun of Last of the Summer Wine. It's just myself, Charles Chance, our CTO, and David Duffett, who joined us in July. Little bit about David before we kick off. Many of you will know him. He's been about the open source block for donkey's years, and is a well treasured personality within that space. He's come to Simwood to help us out because, frankly, I personally can't do as much for open source as we did in the past and as I would like to do. So David is here as our I think your fancy title is corporate ambassador, isn't it, David?
It is. That's the right one.
To represent us around the community, and also to organise us and help us with things such as this. So I'm going to hand over to David and then try my bestest to shut up for the rest of the podcast, which I know I'll fail at. David is going to chair. And Charles, doubtless with a little interruption from me, is going to run through what's been going on and what is going to be going on. Because what you probably don't know is that since back end of 2022, Simwood has run on a very strict quarterly cycle. We view it now that a year is 3 months long. Every quarter has defined objectives. They principally relate, in Charles's case at least, to the technical roadmap, but percolate throughout the business into other departments. So what we're hoping to do with this and future recordings is catch up on what was done last quarter and look forward a bit to what's going on next quarter, and crucially talk about why and what it means to you. So I'll hand over to David. And I hope you get some value out of this. Please do let us know if you do, or indeed if you don't.
Thanks, Simon. I'm delighted to be here. And I'd just like to say that it's really great to be part of the Simwood team. I appreciate the forward thinking, the straight talking, and of course, the support of the open source community, which is all good stuff. So, as Simon said, we've got an agenda here. We're going to look back over the previous quarter. And Charles is going to give us a little bit of detail about each of the things that were achieved during that, and maybe even demo some of the things as well. And so the first thing on the list, Charles, as we review the highlights of the previous quarter, is the BYoC, Bring Your Own Carrier, inbound.
Indeed. That was quite a big thing, I think, for us to announce and to work on. But it's actually quite fundamental to some of the things that are in future quarters and future roadmaps that we know that we've been busily working away at. But it underpins everything and actually opens access up to these nice things, particularly for those with number estates elsewhere who obviously watching with some interest as to some of the nice new features and functionality that's becoming available on the Simwood platform, the Simwood offering carrier services stack, but for whatever reason can't immediately bring that estate over, be it because of a restriction around wholesale porting, or whether it's commercial or otherwise, but would like to do so over a period of time, perhaps, with the ultimate aim being those numbers being on net with Simwood. But in the meantime, what we've introduced is this BYoC concept, which allows essentially you to point those numbers to Simwood.
I like to
we'll
think
accept
of it,
the traffic.
I like to think of it, Charles, as the antidote to carrier envy. That when people look across at all the goodness in Simwood, they can actually come and use it without having to leave home, as it were, number-wise. Anyway, sorry, I jumped in there.
That's right. And where somebody wants to pick up some of the nice features, particularly looking at the potato as that analogy, that well known and well versed analogy now with the various layers wrapped around the core. Of course, in order to be able to get to those features, you need the cores to to come into that potato in the first place, and then you can pick them up along the way. So with BYoC inbound, it enables you to sort of to repoint those numbers from elsewhere into Simwood and pick those features up, and then have those calls delivered either back to where they originated for onward routing, or to directly to end users, to customers, or into your own platform, regardless, just as you would have calls delivered if they were to numbers hosted on net. So that's BYoC inbound in a nutshell, and I'm sure Simon can add some detail around the bigger strategy there behind it, and why it's valuable to customers in general. But technically, that's what it does, and it's a lot more complicated, I think, in terms of what we've had to do to achieve that. But it works, and it works brilliantly.
I'm supposed to be staying quiet, but since you invited me, if I start talking about the why on this one, I'll be going for hours. So I think that's probably a separate dedicated podcast, or we have written some white papers, which we'll link somewhere up there, which talk about they talk about various things. One talks about the potato. There's another one that talks about teams and how the entire industry has got it wrong. And then there's another one that talks about origin surcharges. It's probably the first two that are relevant here. Why people have got teams wrong and where it's really going. And the second one about the potato, because it's kind of unusual. And I think we're the only carrier in the world that is willing to forego carrier revenue. It seems illogical, and I'm pretty sure there's some purple radioactive people somewhere laughing and thinking that we're stupid. But in short, we're quite happy for them to keep the revenue that won't be there in a few years' time, while we're providing the value to our customers and our customers' customers, and enabling them to achieve things that they otherwise couldn't. That's the gist of it. But we'll put a QR code or a link up somewhere for people to download those.
Yeah, I see it as really an unparalleled venture into collaboration, allowing people to come together at a level that was never previously achievable. It's very forward thinking, if you don't mind me saying so.
I think you can't solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions, and the monetized minute, whether you think it's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, I think we can all agree that in 500 years' time, people won't be paying to exchange their voice over a medium, which is essentially what all of our businesses are built on. So our customers, and indeed us underneath them, need to skate to where the puck is going. That's our philosophy, at least.
With you, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for that. Charles, next thing on the list is the murky world of porting. It's a very necessary thing in our industry, and yet we've been finding ways to do it better.
Yeah, murky indeed, and actually this has been seemingly an issue, an ongoing problem that's needed to be solved, and that is reducing the cost of porting, the underlying cost of porting, because it's all about efficiency. Porting has been to date a loss leader, and it became very apparent that we were spending way too much time on processing ports. Ports, the process, for those who don't know, involve chucking Excel spreadsheets around between providers. That's the extent of the porting, the portability process. You complete the spreadsheet, you send it over to somebody else. They complete a cell in that spreadsheet to say yes or no, and they send it back. And it's just crazy in 2024 that is the process. So there's a lot of manual handling. There is some automation across the industry, in certain quarters or certain camps with some of the larger carriers, larger operators. But it's not automation in the sense of that the automation that helps things. In fact, in most cases, it makes it even more difficult, because if you have a cell in that spreadsheet that is in italics when they don't expect it to be, they'll reject it. Or if
that fits in,
happens to be, if it happens to be an Excel format that's more recent than 1995, they'll reject it. It's this kind of thing. It blew my mind. I just did not realise that this still went on. When I sat and spent some time with our porting guys, just to see where, just to take a look at where their challenges were, where the obstacles were, where the time sinks were, essentially, with a view to making it as good as it could be. We say so. That was the underlying sort of driver to looking at this porting automation, but doing it properly, doing it in a way that actually made sense to do it, rather than just giving a script to name and saying, hey, we've got a bot that processes this automatically, when actually there's still somebody there behind that bot, having to pick up the pieces when it rejects because of the italics and so on and so forth. So yes, we made good progress in quarter three, which was last quarter, and the first quarter that we've been working on this. There's still a way to go, and it's an ongoing process of evolving, and we've taken the lowest hanging fruit, those and picked off the things with the greatest bang for buck, if you will. And already we're seeing porting processing times fall, from what would have been days to essentially minutes. 5 minutes, I think, is the record. I'm not completely up to date on
that was the record last time I looked, for sure. And that's from a customer submitting through the API to a customer getting a response, be it an acceptance or a rejection. Now, obviously, there's two sides to the porting process. There's us getting to it and sending things off, or us processing the responses that come back. But there's the other operator actually doing their bit in the middle. So clearly, we've improved our times because things aren't sitting in queues waiting for humans. But where other operators have employed bots, and we can play nicely with those bots, we're getting the benefit end to end. So clearly, at the 5-minute level, there's no human involvement whatsoever. That's just their bot at the other side responding to an appropriate format to us. As soon as you add humans into it, it's going to be slower. But the key thing for me is that we're taking out that latency, and what Charles and team have done in association with Vicky, our ops manager, is just look at where the bit like whack-a-mole, look at where the sharp edges are, and mixing metaphors here, but knocking the least productive thing on the head, and then moving to the next one. We're never going to automate porting 100% until there's some kind of agreed API and interop between operators, and frankly a change in commercials such that the net losing providers aren't incentivized to make life difficult for everybody else. But I'm blown away with what Charles and team have done, and the impact it's made, because as you said, porting was a loss leader for us massively, and getting that the right side of revenue would be wonderful, and turning porting into a profit center would be even more wonderful. However, we've committed publicly not to do that. It would be nice to lose the loss on it, but what we intend doing is passing on the benefits of automation to customers, such that if they're able to resist the temptation to pick up the phone and tell us they've submitted something through the API, or resist the temptation to nag people 3 nanoseconds after the last phone call, and let the technology do its thing, then we'll pass on a discount where there's no human involvement. Obviously, if that goes to a provider that requires human involvement, or our customer requires human involvement, then there won't be a discount to pass on. That's the way I see it working at the moment, because we've got some customers that are API driven and no trouble at all, and they should get the benefit of this.
It's great to hear some positive news about porting, isn't it? Because as Charles alluded to, it's one of those processes that is laden with excuses at the other end. And hopefully, when it is all bots, the bots won't make excuses. They'll just get on with the job.
The beautiful thing for our customers is that it's a consistent API now, which they don't need to worry about all the nonsense behind the scenes. They just need to integrate with our API, which is as consistent as it can be in the circumstances. Obviously, if a provider uses the wrong rejection code, then that's going to make its way all the way through. But the API itself is totally consistent. And actually, there's probably a couple of other things that we could mention there. I don't know if you want to do that, Charles. The porting API in respect of the hosted platform, but also the hardware API potentially,
and the temporary number facility.
Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, this kind of preceded some of the automation, and the automation has only added to the to the benefit of it. But we added porting or portability to the hosted API late in the previous quarter, but I think actually launched it officially at the beginning of quarter 3, just prior to starting the automation. And it essentially mirrors the carrier services API, or backs onto it nicely. So even down to sort of the webhook delivery and status updates and things. But where we have white labeled partners, selling the hosted platform onto their own customers, they can the emails that their customers will see are obviously branded, white labeled from them. So it's a nice value add, and just really makes their lives a lot easier, and feeds then into the automation that ultimately will be end to end, hopefully, and completely non-touch. One of the nice or most recent parts of that hosted integration with the portability side, it is, as Simon said, I think you said, David, the temporary number feature, which I must admit, when we did it, felt quite obvious, but it seems since we've added it, is actually quite unique in the industry, and avoids somebody sat there manually swapping numbers and things around when waiting for a port to complete, and then quickly or hurriedly reconfiguring things so that their end user isn't out of service and things. So what we added was, again, as I say, quite simple really, but works really nicely. That is, when you provision a customer on the platform, you assign them a number, a new number, if you like, that they can use and have calls sent to, and as many do when they're moving to a new platform pre-port, they'll have their calls forwarded to a temporary number. That's quite commonplace, so that they can configure their soft phone or their SIP handset on the desk to their new extension on the new system, and make and receive calls, maybe even presenting their current number that's elsewhere on outbound as well. So it's quite seamless. But at the point the number then ports, there's all this, as I say, kind of reconfiguration or swapping numbers in and out manually to get that service in place then on the number after post port. So what we've done is we've added a parameter to the porting request on the API, which allows you to specify the number that you want it to replace automatically on completion. So you can set this customer up with a temporary number, have their SIP device and everything else connected to the system, and they're using it. Due to the way that the porting APIs are backed together and will act upon the webhooks that Simwood sends to the hosted platform, it will obviously wait for that to happen. And at the moment the port completes, then that webhook is received, it will immediately swap out the number, completely transparently to the user. The user doesn't know that this is happening, and the SIP device remains connected using the same credentials and everything else. Doesn't need reconfiguring or anything. And once it's complete, it's done. They throw away their old system and the new number's in place, and the temporary number just disappears, goes into quarantine, eventually gets released back to the pool.
Good stuff. Sounds like a win for the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, strategically, I think it's massive for customers as well. So we do an awful lot. I think it's fair to say more than anybody else with altnets, particularly delivering residential services. And obviously, we have residential as an offering on the hosted platform. And there's two elements to making that work for a provider. One is the cost of the seat, where we're committed to selling that lower than some of our competitors' license prices on their magic boxes. So that side of it, I don't worry about. But there's the whole operational side, where if you're giving voice away for free, or you're charging somebody a tenner a month, then you can't be messing about for half a day, provisioning equipment and handling the port. So the ability for them to integrate us into their OSS, BSS, and fire off several API requests, during the course of signing the customer up, one to port the number, one to set up either to pull down SIP credentials and put them in their own auto configuration, TR69 setup or what have you, or another thing we haven't really talked about is to fire a request to us to procure hardware to be shipped to the customer. They unbox that hardware, plug it in, we auto provision it, and effectively between a handful of APIs that can all be called when the customer is signed up, you don't need to touch that customer again. And they have a hands-free, effectively, experience, which dramatically reduces the operational cost of onboarding them, and reduces errors and improves customer experience, etc., etc. So, although things like a hardware API might not sound that exciting, and auto provisioning doesn't sound that exciting, nor does porting API sounds even less exciting. You actually put all that together with existing APIs for provisioning customers on the platform and things, and you can build a pretty slick operation, and some of our customers are doing, which is really exciting. And then that pushes the pressure back on us to be as efficient as we can with the actual porting process and make it all happen as quickly as we can, which leads to the automation that we just talked about.
Yeah, and I can see that not only is it a win for our customers in terms of the ease of the automation for them, but they're not having to take calls from their end customer saying what's going on, because it's all happening pretty smooth. And so
there was a little detail in what Charles said there that might have been overlooked, which is where somebody is putting a porting request into the hosted platform, the platform will take care of communication with their customer in a white labeled way. So they literally don't need to touch it. Obviously, they've got full visibility, so they can if they choose to, but equally they don't have to. Which I think is where we all need to go.
Yes, good stuff. Now we're going to move on to that subject of Teams now, and Charles is going to talk to us and maybe even do an exciting demo. But we have to say at the very outset that not all Teams implementations and integrations are created equal, are they?
No, they're not indeed, and too many, unfortunately, are not created. They're just kind of relabeled, rebadged, and sold without any value add or any proper integration or any thought behind how it's going to be used. It's just a case of we need Teams. Quick, let's find the easiest thing we can resell, and then it's a box. It's a check in the box, but actually there's no understanding of how it might be used or how it might be benefit the end user. And that's actually where we struggled for some time before actually diving into producing or implementing what we have now, which I will demo shortly. Simon, you're about to say something there, I think.
I was just going to give a nudge again for the white paper on this, because I really do quite passionately believe that most of the industry have got this wrong. And given how strategically significant Teams is looking forward, getting this wrong is an existential event. And I think that, there's certain people out there, they might be purple, they might be radioactive, they've adopted an approach of, oh, look, shiny asteroid. And I'd say what I said before, that you can't solve tomorrow's problems selling yesterday's, solutions. Microsoft isn't stupid, and the approaches that have been taken to teams kind of rely on them being. So it needs a different approach that has taken us some time to get to be perfectly honest. As Charles said, the feedback from sales was, we need teams, and we think in a very similar way, and we're both saying, well, what's the opportunity, what do you need it for, what's the use case? And it was very clear that it was just a tick box. There wasn't actually a legitimate need at the end of it. And that's changing really rapidly. Teams is adopting at a really, really fast rate, and is going to dominate stroke extinct stroke obsolesce UCaaS over coming years. And hence why I describe getting it wrong as an extinction level event. You want to work with it, not try and capitalize on it in the way that people are across the industry at the moment. But I'll let Charles get on with his demo. But we'll put up a link to that white paper, because that says more succinctly than I certainly can here what we're trying to convey.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Simon. It's good. Very good points. And the white paper is definitely worth a read and download. The Teams actually has been the integration. The underlying integration is at the carrier services level, as is most, as is almost everything we do. The hosted platform is built on top of the carrier services stack and adds value to it. For those that don't have their own platform and want to take something which is hosted and for onward sale to their customers. Also has its own APIs, of course, to build on top of that. In addition, and we have many partners who do that and integrate with other systems and whatnot, which is great to see. We're SIP-centric, and the platform has always been API first, just as Simwood and the carrier services stack has always been API first, which is why it works really well together. But it's also why we view it as a reference implementation, SIP-centric, as to what can be achieved by others with their own platforms if they want to do they want to do this and integrate with Teams for their end users. So I'm going to demo actually the hosted side of it, but very quickly at the end show you how that is connected back to the carrier services side, because ultimately anything you add Teams wise on the hosted platform is making API calls behind the scenes to the carrier services API in order to provision numbers, connect the tenant, etc. And also for routing calls, where the calls, where you want to see the calls into your platform first, so you can make decisions and decide what to do with them and remain in the call path to be able to continue to do things like call recording and any other kind of nice analytics and reporting and things that you do on your platform. So we've launched both in as beta in Q3, and we're very much hoping that both will be out of beta in Q4, but we'll obviously look at that as we move into the next section. Let me do this demo. I've had to pre-record it. The reason being is that we're on a Teams call ourselves, and it's very difficult to demo making and receiving calls from Teams when you're also using Teams and trying to screen record and everything else. So I've pre-recorded it, but I'll talk through. I'll share the video and I'll talk through it as live as it's playing, if that's okay. So here we go. Right. Okay. So I'll press play. I may stop it and start it in different places. So by all means, if there's any questions as we go through, just jump in, David. I know you particularly like to understand what's going on behind the scenes, but perhaps and I think others will want to as well. So if there's anything that I'm missing or not going into too much detail about it, just feel free to stop me at any point. So Teams, as you know, has the ability to has a phone system feature, and it has the ability to make and receive calls to and from PSTN using telephone numbers that you can buy from Microsoft. But you can also, using their Operator Connect program, buy those numbers from other operators, your preferred choice, such as Simwood. Tends to be better value, in terms of the number rental, but definitely the calls, the minutes and things, and that's where we're integrated, is at the sort of the Operator Connect level, so that you can take a number from Simwood or from a number that you have on the hosted platform, as I'm about to demo here, and link it to your Teams account such that you can have calls to it received in Teams by a Teams user, and any calls that team user makes goes out and presents as that number, and you have the ability to charge your end user for those calls. Of course, they're terminated in the same way as any other calls that you would send to out.simwood.com would be, or any calls that you make from the hosted platform would be in this case. So let's continue. What I have here is the dashboard for the hosted platform for a SIP-centric demo account, which already has a bunch of numbers and extensions and things on it. But what we're doing here, and you'll notice, is that there is this new add-on that we've exposing currently in beta, so you have to register to have access to it. But this quarter, later this quarter, will be publicly available. And I've already connected this tenant for this demo purpose. But if it wasn't connected, it's just a matter of entering the tenant domain in there, hitting connect, and then exposes this secondary part here for connecting numbers.
It's surprisingly simple, Charles, isn't it, that part?
It is, yeah. It's enter the domain, hit connect, it goes away. The beauty of Operator Connect, actually, and Microsoft's done it really well, is it provides access to only what you need access to. So it doesn't expose. I mean, it has its downsides as well, of course, not having access to things like the users on the team side through the API, and only the numbers that you've pushed into it or you're providing. It means you everything we do in terms of Teams is based on the number. It's based on a DDI. We can't see or list users and be able to say and link the user. It's all DDIs. But that's actually a benefit, I think, in many ways, certainly from a privacy perspective, from the end user's point of view, and it means there's no heavy authentication going on, as there is with direct routing, having to copy and paste SBC domain names as text records on DNS domain names, and then have Microsoft verify ownership and all that sort of thing. That's gone with Operator Connect. It's so much easier. As you've noticed, you enter the domain, you hit connect, done. That's the connection set up, and we can start to add numbers for use with that Teams tenant. Now, of course, there are sort of 2 or 3 main scenarios that we've identified through talking to some of our larger and more some of our strategic customers who have big plans for this. The first one is where somebody's exclusively Teams, has nothing or no interest in using the PBX features, the hosting features. They just want some numbers, wants to be able to make and receive calls and have some bundled minutes and things. Second might be where they have a mixture of users, some on PBX, some on Teams, and want to be able to work in this hybrid way, calling between each of the platforms, but having numbers route to one or the other or both. And the other is where they have exclusively Teams users, but still want to take advantage of some of the more advanced routing features of PBX, such as call queuing, and menus and auto attendance and things like that. So we're going to take this number that exists on the platform already on this account, and we just select it. Now that's added to Teams, believe it or not. Done. Okay, ready to assign it to a user on Teams.
It seems too good to be true, Charles.
It is. It's fascinating. What we'll do is we'll switch over to the Teams admin portal in here now, and just see how easy it is. We need to click away and click back to refresh. But there you go. There's the number, ready to assign to a user on Teams. So it's a quick search. There it is. Assign it, and as the way he thinks about it, done. So at that point, this phone number is available to use. It's in what we call a straight pass-through configuration. So any calls to that number get sent directly to Teams. Okay, you can see here the destination on the number is Teams. And any calls made from Teams by that user will obviously via the PBX using the call plan that's assigned to that customer, and presenting that number on outbound, will route and terminate as it would do if it was made locally. So I'm going to test calling in from outside. There we go. Okay, so I've called that number. It's recognized the caller because this caller exists in the PBX phone book, and it's passed that name through to Teams. So that's another nice sort of example of how deep the integration goes. And similarly, if we were to make a call out from here, that would go out in the same way, and present that number to the called party. So that's the simplest, sort of most basic use case for the Teams integration, and it really is just sort of 2 or 3 clicks. Choose your number, assign it to your Teams users, and away you go. The next level of
Charles,
yeah.
Just before you move on, can we just deal with the elephant in the room? When you were on the Teams admin panel, it had the number provider listed as Scipio.
Yeah.
Which is no surprise to me, of course, but I know that some of our customers will be furiously pulling up web pages and sending off inquiry emails now. Do you want to just run through that relationship and why it exists? And
sure. So we obviously want in the process of registering as an operator on the Operator Connect program with Microsoft. However, we were beginning the process. However, they decided to close it temporarily. It's still not available to register in the UK currently. I think they basically ended up with too many, so they're catching up. Once it's reopened, we can resume that process. But we needed a way to essentially be sponsored. I think is the best terminology to use. I don't know if
I think Microsoft would call them an accelerator.
Accelerator. That's it. That's the one. So we use them currently for sort of access to the program by proxy, but we interconnect with the Azure, all of the Azure regions on the Teams platform directly, full mesh and everything else. So the actual routing of the calls is as direct as it could be, while we await our own tile in the operators list on the Teams interface, if you will. So it's a means to an end, but none of what you see here is kind of stock or standard functionality as far as Scipio is concerned. This is a deep Simwood-esque integration, done properly and done with care and consideration for how it might be used, rather than just a rebadge and a relabeling of something that exists and can just be bought by anyone.
Yeah, they're a great partner, and we're happy to work with them. But I think it's important to understand the depth of that relationship and how much of the integration is kind of on our side, because there's other solutions out there in the marketplace that are frankly hacky. and I wouldn't want our customers to assume that's what was going on here, because it isn't.
That's it. No, it's it's a proxy to the operators connect APIs, until such time as they reopen the ability for us to actually get on that program directly, for the UK market. There are some far-flung markets which we're not a part of that it's still open for, where they're desperate to get to have operators, but unfortunately that's the nature of the beast as it stands. But yeah, that's the reason for Scipio appearing in the list there, and I think you're right to flag that one and to raise it. So the next stage of integration is where, or the next scenario I spoke about will be where somebody, or where a customer has extensions on the local PBX as well as users in Teams. And those users might want, will probably want to be able to make and receive calls from either of those places, depending on where they are and what's most convenient to them. I mean, we know that but from experience that the Teams client on a mobile device is actually a fantastic soft phone. So taking advantage of that and using the Teams client as a soft phone on as an extension of the PBX is one of the things that we really needed to get into this integration, and that's what we've done on the hosted side. And it's, as I say, it serves as an example of what can be achieved by building on top of the carrier services Teams integration, which is what's underneath all of this, which I'll show you at the end as I alluded to. So as we continue, we can go back to the add-on configuration for Teams Operator Connect, and we can associate this number with an extension, a local extension. And again, it's just as easy or straightforward as selecting the extension, and that association is now made, it's done, to the extent that any call to that extension, whether it's locally from another extension on the platform or whether it's to this number, which is the DDI from outside to that extension, will ring on the extension, and at the same time that pass through to the DDI in Teams, which gives you immediately this parallel ringing or parallel routing situation, which I'll demo again by calling the same number. The only change I've made is just select the associated extension, call that number, and you can see here I've actually got a soft phone open as well on my screen, as well as the Teams client. So that soft phone is just a SIP. There we go, soft phone connected to the extension 102. That call from the same number is recognised and is ringing in both places, both the SIP soft phone and the Teams client. And of course, it's up to the user which one they answer on, and the other one will be cancelled. Similarly, if there's another extension, so this is Teddy, who wants to reach Charles on his extension 102, he can do so, and you can see that the presented name and number in Teams is 1004, which is the local extension number, and Teddy's name. But that also means if Charles misses that call and wants to return it, he can call back to the local extension number. He doesn't need to remember public numbers or anything else. And there is the call to Charles's soft phone extension. Sorry, to Teddy's extension, which I have a soft phone registered to on the same computer here. Just by calling his 3 or 4 digit extension in this case. So real deep integration in terms of the numbers that you use to call between. They're very familiar. If you have somebody who's answering most of the calls and whose role it is to transfer to other people, it doesn't matter whether they're on. They don't need to know if they're on the PBX or if they're in Teams or anything. They just transfer to the extension number, and it takes care of the rest. Further, there's let's say there's a sales number here that routes into a queue. I'm just going to remove the welcome sound for the sake of speed of the demo. But these are the two agents in the queue, Teddy and Charles. Okay, now we know that we have a soft phone for each of those connected on my computer here, and we also know that the Teams client for Charles is also open. So by calling that sales number on the PBX, okay, which I'll do now, the call will enter the queue and should ring both people. Now, of course, there's 3 notifications here because we've got 1 for Teddy on the soft phone, and we have 2 for Charles. There's a soft phone and there's the Teams client. Okay, and also you notice that identifier that was set on the number is also passed through. So Charles, who's answering on Teams, knows that this was a call to the sales line, which has reached him through the sales queue, and can answer appropriately or not if he doesn't want to answer the sales calls for the day. So third scenario, and I'm sort of trying to rush through this last bit if I can, just to move on. But the last scenario is where there isn't an existing PBX extension, but you still want that 3-digit, that convenience of having a familiar number for other users on the PBX to reach them. If for some reason you don't want a full-blown regular extension, you don't need to take advantage of call recording and things, but you just want to be able to include them in a call queue, etc. You can still do so with a virtual extension, which is added here with the number 835. We can add them to the call queue in the same way. Okay, let's remove Charles and pop. Charles doesn't exist now. We're popping just his Teams user in there instead. Repeat the demo by calling the sales number. In fact, no, sorry, I think I demonstrated calling the 3-digit number first. So there we go. So if Teddy wants to reach a Teams only user, he just needs to dial 835, which is the new extension number that we just created. And there it is. Okay. Similarly, a call into the sales queue will route in the same way. There we go. Okay. So 3 scenarios, I think 3 main. I'm sure there are plenty of others, but the flexibility of this just really allows you to mix and match and design a system or a setup that works for the end user, regardless of whether that's a permanent fixture, whether they continue to use both Teams and UCAS, or whether this is a migration exercise and it's a halfway house. Somebody is moving to Teams. We acknowledge that there are going to be people who are moving to Teams. It has its place. It's Microsoft aren't stupid, as Simon said at the beginning. We want to embrace that and make it a pleasant experience, but also be able to add value to it and remain relevant. So the integration is a deep one. It's not a WebRTC client thrown up in the Microsoft App Store, which looks like it's an integration, but actually could be killed at any point when Microsoft realise that it's just a dummy soft phone which avoids the need to pay for a Microsoft phone license. They inevitably will do.
It's smooth and elegant, Charles, and as you said, Microsoft, not being stupid, will have a strategy, but right now they are a little bit light on telephony functionality, aren't they?
Indeed.
And
but
so
catching up. Catching up fast. Some of the stuff they're doing with AI and some of the call center stuff is amazing. And what we talk about in the white paper is that if you're the type of business that's saying, well, do you want UCaaS or do you want Teams? Or UCaaS has had its day, buy Teams, or fundamentally all you're doing is selling lines and minutes, which is what you've done for the last 20 years. And there's an £800 gorilla coming to eat your lunch. That is absolutely guaranteed. If instead you can deliver value to your customers by picking the best of both. So today, Teams doesn't have call center queuing and call distribution, for example. You can build that through the hosted platform. Tomorrow they may have that, but they may not have analytics, or you might still have Doris on reception that wants to dial a three-digit extension to reach people. The value is going to ebb and flow as they move into the market. There's always going to be things that they're going to do better than the existing solution. There's always going to be things that are better in the existing solution than what they do. And having the two so tightly meshed so customers can pick and choose where the value is, rather than giving a customer a choice of two order forms. Do you want Teams or do you want UCaaS? It just feels a so much more sensible way of doing it to me, and I think Charles & Co have done an amazing job there.
Brilliant, yeah, best of both. No, top class.
I did promise to just to show how it sort of linked back to the carrier services side of things, for those with their own platforms that just really want to take advantage of this but aren't using the Simwood hosted offering. Quite simply, it's available here. Again, I mentioned it's a beta offering at the moment. That's on just in the Simwood portal. We can see this has been created just on the back of a bunch of API calls that's been made by the Simwood, by the hosted platform. And here's the number that we added. Now that number is it follows the default route into the SipCentric platform, and would obviously follow the route into your own platform if you're a carrier services customer looking to achieve the same. And then you make that decision as to whether you want the call to go or not. You can do so just with headers, in the call back to Simwood, back to out.simwood.com, and similarly in the other direction. So where we have where we have a call made from Teams, you can, rather than have it terminate, the default is to have it terminate out to the PSTN. Again, just like any other call would be if you made it from your platform, sending it to out.simwood.com. The default is that, but instead, if I just skip forward a bit, you can have it instead route to your own platform, to a SIP endpoint on your own platform first, so you can make the decisions as to what to do, such as routing it to a local extension number, as we've done, as I showed you in the demo. So just by changing the routing of outbound calls from this Teams Operator Connect tenant, you can have it route to your platform, make that decision, and if ultimately it needs to go out to PSTN to a mobile number or something, then you send it back to out.simwood.com, just like any other call, and we'll terminate it for you. So yeah, it's all built on that goodness there. It's really easy. It's all API driven, and headers for the calls to tell us if you want us to send it across to Teams, or out to PSTN. And if anyone's interested in knowing more about that, then of course it's always open. We can arrange a call and go through some of the more technical details of that.
Thank you, Charles. That's pretty clever stuff. And that part that you just demonstrated, was that the off-net numbers that's on my list, or have we got to talk about that just yet?
No, that's still to come. Yeah, because at the moment this is
in that
everything
case,
there was with numbers on there.
Brilliant. In that case, we need to swing our necks round from the looking backwards to the looking forwards part while we're talking about Teams, because I think it's the off-net numbers that are one of the things that are coming up in the next quarter.
Absolutely. So this is extension to the BYoC inbound, and in combination, or combined with the Teams implementation that we, both of which we released last quarter. This now allows, we recognise that people who want to make use of this Teams integration may not have the numbers that they want to integrate with Teams hosted with Simwood. They may want to bring numbers that they have elsewhere, and of course BYoC is the perfect vehicle for doing so. But at the moment, the Teams integration will only allow you to push numbers into Teams that you have on your account, your Simwood account, or on your hosted customer account. So what we're doing this quarter is opening that up and allowing you to just add any number, if you like, that you happen to bring, whether it's over BYoC and it's hosted somewhere else, or not, to a Teams tenant, so that you can basically connect the two up and be able to send calls into us over the BYoC connection, route it to Teams, route it to the hosted platform, route it somewhere else, wherever you want, pick up call recording along the way, do anything else you want to do. Making good use of the entire stack and all the features, the niceness. But ultimately, the off-net numbers is the sort of the end result. There is that you can use this nice Teams integration that we've just demoed, but with numbers which aren't hosted on your account with Simwood.
Yeah, I mean, but BYoC outbound, as you just demonstrated with the Teams case, is opening up a huge amount of choice for people. I wonder if you could talk briefly about the drivers for actually enabling that. I'm assuming it came as a result of people asking questions in terms of functionality, and so why BYoC outbound came to be.
Well, BYoC outbound is something else, of course. That's
I was going to say, you got ahead of yourself a bit there, Mr.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Teams off-net numbers.
Have I jumped forward?
It is the next.
My apologies.
It is the next item, so it's a seamless link there, Mr. Duffett, which is great. But yes, BYoC outbound is indeed another of the objectives for this quarter as we look forward, and it is as it sounds. It's the ability to, rather than just receiving calls inbound to the Simwood platform over these new shiny BYoC endpoints or connections, it's the ability to route certain traffic, or traffic that makes sense that you need to do so in this way, out over that external carrier. Now this, I think the main driver for this is where we've had inquiries and there's opportunities with some with customers who are in not in the UK, and that particularly they're in countries where we're not like a licensed operator, and we have no intention of becoming a licensed operator, because it just wouldn't make sense for the amount of business that we do there. But they want to take advantage of the platform, or whether it's hosted or whether it's carrier services, and want to be able to deploy it locally and take some UK numbering or send us some UK termination. But at the same time, they have local customers with local numbers, and there are a couple of main issues with doing that where we're not licensed, and that is local CLI presentation will ultimately be blocked or swapped out or surcharged, or all three, and emergency services, local emergency services calls. So in those instances, we're inviting those people to bring their own carrier in country in order to terminate those calls locally in country and to emergency services, etc. And this, BYoC outbound enables them to do that.
Excellent.
I can give a few more examples there, actually, because there's probably half a dozen real customers and conversations behind this. The example Charles gave exists at both the carrier services level and the hosted level. Take the hosted level, for example. Somebody wants to sign up 20,000 seats in the UK, but they happen to have 3 people on the Isle of Man. Well, do you not include them on the phone system, or do you pretend they're not on the Isle of Man? Nobody that likes doing things properly wants to do either of those. So they've got the capability now to sort out Isle of Man 999, Isle of Man numbering themselves, and use the platform as a service and capture the bigger opportunity. Another one, we've got a customer that's building literally across a continent and wants to use our building fiber infrastructure and wants to use our platform to deliver residential and SME services out across multiple countries. We're not in those countries. We've no wish to be licensed in those countries. They need to be licensed anyway because they're providing a service there, and they already have relationships with the incumbents of those countries because of what they're doing. So they can leverage all of that to bring calls into the platform using BYoC inbound, and then use BYoC outbound for the emergency calling and that subset of calls that need to be routed locally. Obviously, if they're still calling internationally, they can send those calls to us as normal, and we'll complete them. 2 other examples. There's platform operators out there where they have the platform servicing their own customers, and they have their own carrier relationships, but there's a bit in the middle that they can't do. That yes, they could bend their own platform to try and achieve it, but for whatever reason they don't want to. Simwood could fit perfectly in the middle there. So let's say they have a relationship with carrier A, and all of their calls go to carrier A, except this one customer in one particular region where some of their calls on a Tuesday need to go to carrier B. They can't do that. Simwood can, and that's where BYoC orchestrated via the API can be a really powerful addition to the mix. It's what they should have the capability on their own platform to do and on their own SBCs, but don't. And the real-time control that we offer, and just being in the pipeline there for traffic and able to turn things on and off is really, really powerful. Final example is a customer that actually transcends all of these levels. So they are a local operator in their own right with local interconnects in their jurisdiction. They have their own interconnects. They also have their own SBCs on the end of those interconnects. They have their own virtualization platform. On the virtualization platform, they have their own hosted PBXs providing services to their own customers. They want to get rid of all of that and replace it with Simwood. So BYoC inbound, BYoC outbound at the carrier services level deal with the carrier interconnect side of things, and then using the hosted platform on top of that enables them to migrate away from their own hosted PBX on their own virtualization platform, and the capability for orchestration and real-time API control and moving numbers from one trunk to another, etc., on the carrier services side of things enables them to do that in a non-forklift kind of way. The various parts of this can coexist, and they can migrate at their own speed, rather than being forced to do it on a Saturday night and take no more than 32 minutes to do it, which just isn't practical with a large estate. So this all derives from our vision of where the world is going, and the potato and everything I've talked about that is in those white papers. But it's really interesting having kind of seen that's where the world is going. These opportunities are now finding us, because frankly there's nobody else in the world that is doing this, and I hope it's really, really powerful our customers. Like I say, there'll be knuckle draggers there that are laughing their socks off at how stupid a carrier that's letting other carriers have all their revenue. Well, you could say that's conviction in where things are going. They're only having the revenue that won't be there in a few years' time. Whereas hopefully we've added value to their customer in the meantime.
Amazing. Yeah. One of the examples you gave there was incumbents in faraway places that might want to use Simwood. And that brings us on to the next part, doesn't it? The pushing out of our global edge.
It does. These links are seamless. Really good. Exactly. All of that stuff that Simon just mentioned is great. But the trouble is, the further away that they are, the greater the latency. And of course, we all know with voice, latency matters. And you can't change the speed of light. As we keep saying, we can't increase the speed of light. So there's only a limit in terms of your connection quality and everything else that you can get to. So, in a way that means the platform is one big SBC, whereas typically, with the carriers and old school or dinosaurs, as we've referred to them in the past in various blogs, they're architected in a much more traditional way, where customers are configured to connect to a local SBC or a pair of IP addresses, and that's and it's very, very static and very very fragile as well. But of course, that requires you as well. If somebody is in multiple places, they need to know and connect back to the nearest place. Maybe it's halfway in the middle, or maybe a couple of different places. The way we're architected means we can actually just deploy our edge, or the instances that make up the edge, anywhere in the world, and it automatically becomes part of that same SBC. So we can reduce the latency, because all of the media, if caller to callee, if the caller and callee are in the same country, the media will stays at that point on the edge. It doesn't need to traverse through the core. It doesn't need to be thrown backwards and forwards between multiple points. It's very efficient, and any intelligence and any decisions and things obviously happen across the core, and things, data is replicated and whatnot. But all we need to be concerned about is reducing that latency, the experience for the caller and the callee. So what we're doing in order to ensure that the experience for customers consuming BYoC, Teams, and everything else in other countries is as good as it can be, is we're expanding our edge globally to ensure that we've got at least presence in every continent, on every continent. I think in some cases where it's particularly large continents, that we're making sure we've got a couple of pops dispersed accordingly. But global edge deployment is what we're calling this project, and it's just going to lead to better experience, lower latency, and there won't be any need for customers to configure or to knowingly to specific IPs or specific POPs, because they just address the traffic in the same way, and through a mixture of GeoDNS and anycast services and things, we just make sure that they get to the nearest edge location for them, for the call, for the scenario that they're using.
Very clever solution.
Just 2 points on that. You said, Charles, you can't improve the speed of light. Some of our competitors have actually achieved that. If you look at some of the claims and some of their network maps, they have defied the laws of physics. They're amazing, and I'm very envious of their engineering capabilities to do so. But down here in the real world, I think the solution is the ideal, and obviously we can expand it as much as we've gone for a quick blanket. I think it's another nine new locations, isn't it, Charles? But or is it six? Somewhere of that order. But we can expand, we can expand that as demand dictates. And just to be absolutely clear and not make some of the same claims as our competitors, we haven't dug up the world. We haven't laid our own fibre from Sydney to London across all of the continents and seas in between. We have our own physical network in the UK. Outside the UK, we rely principally on Amazon and AWS. The code is the same, the deployment is the same, the management is the same. So we can very readily spin up a new edge location kind of anywhere that AWS has capability. And there's obviously there's a journey there. If we spin up an edge in a given country and that all of a sudden becomes the center of our universe commercially, then we probably wouldn't remain using AWS in that country. We would probably build out physical network, because there's advantages to doing so. But we have the capability to get the best of both, there, and a real world kind of use case, because I'm sure there'll be people thinking, well, what's the benefit of this for me? There's two real world use cases, really. Any of our customers that are overseas delivering calls to us to terminate in, say, the UK, they will now have a Simwood edge that is closer to them. So we're responsible for the quality and conveyance of the traffic for longer. It can equally be encrypted, etc., sooner, if that's a capability that they're consuming from us. But the really exciting one is everything that we've talked about so far for a customer in an overseas part of the world. So let's take an ITSP in Australia that wants to use the Simwood hosted platform. We're not licensed in Australia. We'd refer them to our very good friends at Aussie Broadband and Symbio and say, go and get your numbers there, go and get your Australian termination there. They can use the Simwood platform, hosted or carrier services on the back end of those numbers. We'll route the 999 back to Aussie Broadband, and by virtue of the edge deployment, an Australian calling an Australian gets routed, guess what, in Australia. It doesn't have to come all the way back to to the UK and be hairpinned halfway around the world, which is the other thing that's going on with some of these Muppets that have claimed world domination. They may have coloured in the map, but if you look at it from an infrastructure point of view, they'll have two sites, Frankfurt and New York, or London and Brussels, or it's farcical when you look under the hood. But we're trying to do it, properly, in a way that enables our customers to build proper solutions for real customers.
Good stuff, and a thinly veiled reference to our comms business article and cover there as well, with
we'll
the
link to that as well. Yeah.
Should pop that in. Okay,
it's almost like there's a strategy here.
Yeah, it's all hanging together, and we're going to round off looking forward with a quick talk about VertiCall and the situation with that, how we've listened to feedback.
Well, I don't know why we put a negative one at the end. Actually, I'll pick this one up to save Charles the awkwardness. So I did a blog on this the other day, which we'll link to. It's called "Making VertiCall Great Again." When we launched VertiCall, it was completely different to anything else out there in the way that it worked. Everything encrypted by default. Leveraging our unique capability as the only carrier that supports variable bitrate codecs like Opus. The fact that it doesn't rely on persistent or repeated registrations from the client, which hammer people's batteries. So it was really, really unique and good. I say unique because things like the Teams client work in a similar way, now under the hood. But conventional soft phones worked and indeed still work in a very, very different way to VertiCall did. It also hooks into our branding API, so our hosted customers that have the white label platform can use VertiCall, hence why it's given a name that is fairly anonymous. They can get their customers to download VertiCall, but as soon as they sign into it, it will adopt their branding dynamically. For customers that want to go slightly deeper, they have their own deployments on the App Store that are already in their brand. So it's a good solution, but frankly, we let customers down because we weren't able to maintain it to the standard that we'd like. I think is the fair way to say it. There was a few bugs, most significantly on Android. And Charles will probably add some color here, but my take on it is that there's God knows how many different variants of Android, one for each handset manufacturer and another one for each day of the week, multiplied by a random number, and they all behave differently. So you might have a bug on a particular handset that only one person on the planet actually uses, but nevertheless it's a bug that needs addressing. I gave Charles the objective last quarter to make a decision what we were doing with it, because we needed positive action, and I honestly expected the answer to come back that right, let's bin it, let's do what everybody else has done, and let's go to a big brand soft phone manufacturer and let's white label it, and that would have been really sad, because not only would it have been a first for Simwood, but it would have lost loads of the USPs within VertiCall. I'm really pleased that wasn't the decision they made. So we've committed to giving VertiCall dedicated attention. I've talked in blogs about how we're building a team in Georgia, and there's several of those guys started this week, but some of the vacancies that we're filling over there are in Charles's team, and they will afford dedicated resource to focus on VertiCall and maintain it going forwards. And yeah, that's that really. So we've had feedback from customers. We've listened. We've addressed it. I'm sorry and disappointed that we weren't able to do so sooner. But we're committed to making VertiCall the best it can be, and being a fantastic solution for customers, particularly working with the platform. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there, Charles.
No, I think you've covered it, Simon. Other than just to kind of add, the only thing I'd probably add is that we've spoken to customers, and the reason I think for the decision going the way it did, not only aside from the fact that it's not very Simwood, it's not very us to throw something away and just rebadge somebody else's solution. It was that I think it's fundamentally one of the main selling points of a UCaaS system nowadays is the, or certainly of ours, is the integration between the soft phone and the platform features. So just simple things like enabling forwarding rules, and being able to see presence and or busy lamp field status of other extensions in the app. You don't get that when you're rebranding or just white labeling an off-the-shelf big brand soft phone. It is just SIP credentials and you make and receive calls, but so you lose all of the user experience. And I think when we were speaking to customers, partners, and suggested that this might be an option for us, to can it, they were quite concerned, because I think you just expect that those sorts of features nowadays are possible, and particularly when we're looking at alternatives like Teams and things like that. It's just part and parcel of it. So I didn't think it made any sense for us to can it, despite it needing more resource, more attention. I think it's attention and resource in the right area, because we need to be able to demonstrate the value. We need to be able to demonstrate why Simwood, why our hosted solution over and above anyone else's, and the further we go to just scrapping that value in favour of something more generic, the fewer reasons there are for choosing Simwood, both for our customers, our partners, and their end users ultimately.
Yeah.
So it's just the value add.
Just 2 points of clarification there, mostly about what I said. I've probably overdone the negativity, really, because I take stuff like this quite seriously, and I think, you know, in my position, you have to take it almost personally, and I do feel like we let people down. But I say I've overdone that, because it's not like there's hundreds of users affected. You know, there's a handful of issues affecting a handful of end users. So let's not make this into a big drama. But that's a handful more than we'd want, and we pride ourselves on better. The other thing is, I suggested resource was coming as part of our recruitment in Georgia. That isn't to say that the resource is pending. Our recruitments in Georgia in Charles's team are pending. However, issues are already being addressed with his existing team, and I've seen numerous things fixed this week alone as the team in mostly the UK are addressing that. So all of these things we talked about as forward looking are for this quarter, which is the calendar quarter 4 ending 31st of December. So most of this is in flight already. We're just really slow recording this this video. Next quarter it will hopefully be around the turn of the quarter that we actually get to do it.
Yeah, well, thanks for that clarification, Simon. Just to finish off, last couple of minutes before we say goodbye, we've looked back at the roadmap and what's been achieved. We're looking forward to what's going to be achieved. But how is the roadmap formed? How does that come to be?
Ooh, shall I take this, Charles?
Be my guest.
I think there's various answers here, and other people in my seat would say, well, it's valuable feedback from our customers. I would say that's disingenuous, and I often use the quote of Henry Ford. If he'd asked his customers what they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse. None of them would have turned around and say, I want a car. So a lot of our features come from our world view, where we see things going and building towards that. We do get feature requests from customers. Some of them, frankly, are batshit crazy, and so specific to their particular customer base that they're frankly not going to make the cut. And I like to think we're fairly blunt in giving that kind of feedback. But we do have customers that come up with real issues that they can explain in a way that makes sense. And we own our stack, so we've got the ability to change anything. We haven't got to go off to a third-party vendor and ask them to do it. It's really a question of, can we fit it into the program of works, and does it make commercial sense to do so? Give you an example. For years, some of our hosted customers have said we want 4-digit extensions. Why do you want 4-digit extensions? Well, we like 4-digit extensions. We might get a customer that's bigger than 999 seats, to which our response is, well, you can create multiple accounts. Let's say it's a county's schools. You can create an account for each individual school, and unless there's more than 1,000 seats in the school, that makes sense to do so. So that was our position for donkey's years, until one of our customers turned around and said, well, hang on, we're migrating estates from older Veya PBXs, and Doris on reception has always dialed 3678 to reach a particular person. It isn't feasible that we're not only giving them a new system, that Doris has got to relearn all these relearn all these numbers, as has everybody else in the in the organization. And when they put it across like that, with actually a reasoned argument that stands up to scrutiny, and frankly a big commercial carrot at the end of it, then why wouldn't we do that? I think the only scenario in which we wouldn't do that is if it kind of somehow directly conflicted with this other thing, this world vision, and we were somehow having to build to yesterday to do something that conflicted with our values. But the positive takeaway from that is we can do anything. Charles will kick me for saying that, so it's probably good as a virtual call. We own the whole stack. We have in-house very capable and significant in-house development expertise. So I would like to think that we can do things that other people can't, and I think we've probably proved that over 28 years. We just need to focus that resource on what's sensible and is going to benefit the majority of the user base, and makes commercial sense for us to do.
That sounds very fair, Simon. Very
hopefully that's how we try and do
talking.
things. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Charles, because ultimately it's you that these come to.
It is me that these come to. I think that's fair to say, and we always try to understand the use case we need to, in order for what comes out the other side to actually to be useful, and for people to enjoy what we've created, which is ultimately what we all want as developers and beyond, and business owners, etc. I think so what you said, Simon, is absolutely right. We listen to any feedback, but it has to make sense, and it has to come with qualification, justification for doing so. It can't just be for because so and so has it, or because we need it to bolster our sales literature, or whatever the case may be. Never going to be used, but it just looks good on a web page. But we're more than happy to listen and to deploy our incredible talent that we have on our team,
and the rest of the team.
In the team. I would say behind me, but actually in front of me and all around me. That it's a great team. Shout out to all of them. They do produce incredible stuff. My job is to listen, to translate, and to guide that, and then leave them to do it. I'm interested in knowing why something, the why, and if the why makes sense, and the why is going to benefit others, multiple people, then I say, why not? Let's do it. Let's create it.
Makes sense. Okay, it's time.
I think. Can I just add one more thing? I know
you can, Simon. You can.
David, but I use the example of 4-digit extensions, and I think that's quite a nice one, because not only is it something we repeatedly said no to over a long period of time, but it's also something we've done. But I think further to that, it's something where we've done it, and we've gone further than the customer actually wanted, in that you haven't just implemented 4-digit extensions. So you've implemented extensions of a variety of lengths that can coexist on the same PBX, and that was evident in your demo earlier, where you had a 3-digit extension and you also had a 4-digit extension, because it's all well and good moving from 3 to 4, but what do you do about the existing estates?
Good point, Simon. Thank you. Well, we need to bring this into a landing, don't we? We need to bring it down. Charles Chance, CTO, Simon Woodhead, CEO, thank you very, very much. We're going to be back in less than a quarter with the next one of these. But as we close, gents, is there anything else you'd like to say?
just congratulations and thank you very much to anybody that's actually listened to us drone on this long, and I really hope it was useful. I reiterate what I said at the start. Please do give us some feedback, because we want this to be useful to customers, give some visibility of where we're going and why. And I think we haven't discussed this, David, but I think it would be very sensible that we perhaps take questions for like subsequent ones in a kind of ask me anything kind of way. So anybody on our community Slack perhaps wants to maybe tag you, or we could have a new channel
that's
AMA.
fine.
We can pick those up, because there may be bigger, as we do this, there may be bigger topics that we want to pick off and less looking back, because otherwise we'll just be repeating ourselves every quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. So so community Slack or david.duffett@simwood.com will get to me, and we'll be able to deal with those. Okay, gents. Well, thank you very much, and I'll see you again in less than a quarter.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks both. Thanks, David. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.